chalice, symbol of the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, and our cherished Unitarian Universalist tradition entrusted to us by generations of this congregation and far beyond these walls. And now let us join in our unison affirmation. Advent is a season of anticipation. May we welcome it with the open heart of a child.
Come hope, come faith, come joy, come peace.
They told me that when Jesus was born, a star appeared in the heavens above the place where the young child lay. When I was very young, I had no trouble believing wondrous things. I believed in the star. It was a wonderful miracle, part of a long ago story foretelling an uncommon life. They told me a supernova appeared in the heavens in its dying burst of fire. When I was older and believed in science and reason, I believed the story of the star explained. But I found I was unwilling to give up the star, fitting symbol for the birth of one whose uncommon life has been long remembered. The star explained became the star understood for Jesus, for Buddha, for Zoroaster. Why not a star? Some bright star shines somewhere in the heavens each time a child is born. Who knows what it may foretell? Who knows what uncommon life may yet again unfold if we but give it a chance?
I come from a really big Christmas family, which is kind of funny because my dad grew up Jewish, and although kind of not practicing, he was the youngest of 4 boys, and they were a very assimilationist generation. Their parents were both immigrants. And while his mother had been very faithful in her Jewish practice, his dad was, let's be American, let's get over the old country. And so my dad was raised very secular, but with a strong sense of Jewish identity. And anyway, my mom was Russian Orthodox, and they celebrated Christmas January 7th. So it's unusual that we were such a really, my parents were very into Christmas. And we had a big tree, and they were wonderful gift givers. And although neither of them was very religious in any traditional sense, they both had a wonderful sense of the magical. So they were very gifted at creating that sense of magic for my sister and brother and me. And they were also really wonderful at creating traditions. One of the traditions, well, we used to go to the Unitarian church sometimes on Christmas Eve, but one of our traditions was, whether we went to church or not, when we came home or if we were already home, we would open one present, because some of the presents were under the tree. Of course, Santa brought a lot of them overnight and for Christmas morning, but we were always allowed to open one gift, and my brother and sister and I always chose something that looked like a book. So Christmas Eve, we would always be sitting around the fire, reading our books, and my mother always pulled a kind of a prank in that she always wanted us to have new Christmas new pajamas, so that we would look really cute for the photos in the morning. Thinking about everything. And every year, she persuaded us that she forgot to get us pajamas. We'd always say, oh, Mom, don't worry about it. And she'd get very distressed. And every single time we fell for it. Every time she had an excuse. And then when we went to bed, inevitably there would be these new pajamas laid out for us. She also used to give us sleeping potion. That sounds kind of bad, I know, but it was just ice cream and sprinkles and something else. Well, I know that something else is totally appropriate for children. And it was, she'd say, I know you're excited, so you better have your special sleeping potion. We always left out cookies and carrots, for Santa and the reindeer. And my father always secluded himself in the den where he was wrapping gifts. And woe unto you if you walked in there without warning him. One year, he apparently took a string of jingle bells that we had somewhere in the house. I think we just had them as a toy. And he ran around in the woods really, really early in the morning. I mean, 1 or 2 in the morning after he finished wrapping all the gifts, and jingled the bells so that we would wake up and think that Santa was landing on the roof. That's what I mean. I mean, they were just very imaginative and fun. And we always had a big Christmas morning. And it was one of the few times of the year that my parents tended to really get along. And so that was really a wonderful kind of true blessed peacefulness of Christmas. So after my dad died, I really took it upon myself to keep this big Christmas spirit going, even from college. I spent money I didn't have to put together boxes of gifts and make sure that my mom had some, and my sister and brother. And it was it felt like a lot of pressure for me. It was something, I don't know why I took it on, why I took it so seriously. Now I kind of understand that I was trying to keep the magic alive, the sense of family unity, because we had a lot of trouble in my family with family unity. We were not a happy, tranquil family. There was a lot of stress and conflict. And I would even have a lot of dreams about Christmas throughout the year. I mean, not just around the season, but dreams where I had forgotten to go shopping. Maybe some of you have also had this sort of Christmas anxiety dream. Maybe you're having it this year. And I would dream that I forgot to get gifts, like it was the most terrible thing that could ever happen. And of course, over the years, my mother and my sister and my brother would always say, don't do all this. You don't need to. We don't need this. And I started to kind of let go, but I haven't entirely let go. It still feels really important for me to somehow create that magic. So now, as a minister, I get to create magic with all of you, almost always, right, on Christmas Eve. And one of my favorite things to do as a church, you know, I have a frozen shoulder and I did some shoveling. So if I'm doing this, it's because, ow, I should not have shoveled. But Felix Galtieri did most of my shoveling just now. He's a wonderful, wonderful neighbor and a wonderful kid. Okay, I lost my train of thought. My father died, and we went off to college, and we all kind of separated. And over the years, my mother one year said, let's not even try to do the old traditions. And we all packed up and went to a hotel in Canada, in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And it was freezing, but it was a really good idea to just sort of break with all of the things that we really missed after we moved out of my childhood home. After my dad died, and my mom had moved up to upstate New York near her parents, and she was having a really tough time. She was really struggling with alcoholism and food and drug addiction, and I think this was right before she went to rehab. So that was the first year, and I don't remember what year that was, maybe 1987 or so, 86, when the things that meant Christmas to me, that a lot of the practices, the traditions, the foods, and all of that were changed. But because I was still with my family, it really felt okay. And in fact, it was really a lot of fun. Then, in my first year of seminary, I was meeting with my parish ministry internship supervisor, Dorothy Emerson. She passed away 2 years ago, very suddenly. She was the minister of the UU Church in Medford, which is where I did my parish internship. And at that point, I was interested in campus chaplaincy, and I was working also at Tufts University as their UU chaplain with a really wonderful small group of Tufts students, one of whom went on to become a Unitarian Universalist minister himself and is out in Illinois with his own parish and has been for many years now. I was meeting with Dorothy, and it must have been early November, and she said to me, I'll be going away for Christmas Eve this year, so it's all yours. Now, I thought, well, I mean, Christmas Eve I need to travel to Rochester, New York to be with my family. I mean, I'm not going to not be home for Christmas. I didn't say that, though. I just was a little bit dumbstruck. And my first thought was like, my second thought was, how do I get out of this? And Dorothy was watching my expression, and she said, so, you know, can you handle it? Do you think you can handle a Christmas Eve service on your own? Because I think you can. And I said something like, well, what time is the service? Because I'm going to have to drive 8 hours after that. And she said, she looked at me and she said, if you're going into ministry, Vicki, you got to let go of Christmas morning with your family. If you don't live near them, it's something you're going to have to get used to. You're going to be working a lot of holidays. And she just very wisely let me sit with that for a moment. And it was a hard moment for me. I've been thinking about that moment because of where we are here in 2020. And I think we know intellectually that our Christmas traditions or our holiday traditions of gathering with family, we know intellectually that this won't last forever, that the danger of gathering with family or traveling or even traveling locally, just being together indoors, we know it's not a good idea. I'm not going to interfere or question your own judgment and your choices. I do know from talking to many of you that you're trying to make good choices, that you're trying to make safe choices, and that some of you are having really hard conversations or have had to have hard conversations with loved ones who may be feeling like it's not as necessary to be as cautious as you feel like you want to be. It's a hard time because love causes pressure. And I know I've experienced that myself, a kind of a trust and a willingness to cast a little bit of caution to the winds. I don't cast a lot of caution to the winds, but a little bit, as I think, well, we could probably be inside together for a couple of hours, you know, or that initial thought of, well, we can get together, we'll make it work. And then you sort of start planning from there. What would that look like? Maybe a half an hour is a good idea. Maybe instead of a meal, a hot chocolate. Maybe instead of being together in person, a FaceTime call or a Zoom call. It's a really hard thing to negotiate the needs of our hearts and our yearning to be together and our love of our traditions and our sense of how much strength that they give us. So many good memories, so many, you know, bonding experiences. Especially, I know any of you who have children or new grandchildren, you know, you want to see the babies, you want to see the little ones open their presents. There's just a lot of wonderful closeness, and we want to sit by the fire and hear the pages of our siblings turn. You know, I love to listen to my sister turn the pages of a book when I'm on the other end of the couch reading alongside her, and our dogs are nestled between us. You know, it's a wonderful thing. It's quietly joyful. So it's very, very difficult to have that desire and that need, and to understand that this year we're making sacrifices on behalf of safety. So going back to that moment in the Medford church with Dorothy Emerson, where I just sat there feeling kind of this enormity of, wow, I can't get to Rochester, New York for Christmas morning if I'm leading a Christmas Eve service. I just kind of quietly took that back to my apartment with me and sat with it for a few days. And I decided that I would not stay alone in my apartment because I was living with a bunch of other grad students and they were all going off to wherever for the holidays. None of them were in parish ministry internships. And I thought, well, I'm going to find somewhere where I can be, where I can do a completely different, like Christmassy un-Christmas, a different kind of Christmas, but not ignoring Christmas, if you know what I mean. How can I do that? And I thought about it and I realized what I could do is find a religious community. I could go to a retreat center. Maybe they're open over Christmas, and maybe I could find a room and stay with them. So that is how I happened to wind up spending the Christmas of, what would that have been, 1994 at Mount St. Mary's Abbey in Wrentham, Massachusetts. It is a beautiful building, and it has a gorgeous property. It's essentially a farm, and it is a community of about 50 sisters who are of the Order of the Cistercians of the Strict Observance. That's an order that dates back to the 11th century in France. And they are a silent order. So I called the Mother Superior, or I don't remember who it was, but whoever it was who was allowed to speak to outsiders. And I asked if I might stay with them. I explained my situation, and they said, we'd love to have you, which meant so much to me because I'm not Catholic, and I didn't know what the protocol was. It was a very warm night, and I led the Christmas Eve service at the UU Church of Medford, which was very special. And as I was saying earlier, having Christmas Eve with churches has been one of the great joys of the past 25 years. It's never not really moving and special, and brings back a lot of that sparkling sense of the divine and wonder that I remember from my childhood. I drove out there in this warm, sort of rainy night, and it was very, very quiet. I was the only one staying there. So it was me, and the sisters were in their own, obviously, private quarters. And there was no one serving food or anything like that. It was just, everything was set out, sandwiches and cereal. And the sisters welcomed me to join them in prayer. They pray 7 times a day. So they pray throughout the wee hours of the morning, and they pray the canonical hours. I went to sleep on Christmas Eve, and this was 1994, so we did not have cell phones. We had just started using the internet, but there was no Wi-Fi, and I certainly had no computer that would have accessed the internet at that time. There was not even a phone. There was not a television. There was not a radio. So I think I brought a couple of books and my journal and warm sweaters, and it was just me and the silence. And I entered into that silence with a sense, I was determined not to feel like I was being deprived, or I was being punished, or I was having some kind of sacrificial experience. And that was extremely important. I think that was the most important decision I may have made in terms of being able to appreciate and really be present to all the emotions of that unique Christmas. Yes, I was missing my family. Yes, it felt very strange to not be neither giving nor receiving any gifts. I woke up Christmas morning and there was nothing but silence. The only kind of decoration in the guest house was a little name thing on my little, like a name tag on my door. It was an old card. It was Rudolph, of all things. You would expect maybe an extremely religious kind of image. It was Rudolph, and it said, "Welcome, Victoria." And that was it. There were no Christmas decorations anywhere. There wasn't any Christmas carols, nothing like that. I joined the sisters for one of the early hours of prayer, and I realized, oh, they're not going to sing any Christmas carols or anything like that. This is a day like any other to them. They worship Jesus constantly, nonstop. So I later asked if the Christmas day, if they had any kind of change in their liturgy, and the person I talked to said, we have a couple extra special psalms, but that's really about it. And I took a walk. I went out because there was no way to fill the time. And I took a walk out into the farm, and there was this beautiful barn, a good classic New England barn. And the one concession that the sisters had made to it being Christmas Day or Christmas tide is that they had this huge, very simple star lit up over the barn. And that was it. Nothing red and green, no tinsel, nothing, no blow-up Santas, nothing like that. Just this beautiful star. Just like the star of the Christmas story, the Star of Bethlehem, just a reminder of the simplicity of this sacred story of God being born into the world, the divine, the Holy One,
coming into our realm as a baby. And I had this beautiful experience of peacefulness and acceptance and just feeling all the feelings that I felt, which I encourage you to do as well on your weird Christmas day, however you spend it, you know, or however you observe the holidays. Maybe you celebrate solstice, or maybe you had an unusual Hanukkah over the last 8 nights, and Hanukkah has just ended. Last night was the 8th night. Maybe you celebrate the solstice with a big gathering, or maybe New Year's Eve is your thing. Whatever your holiday traditions may be, and however they have changed this year, I just want to invite you and encourage you to let it be, to not tighten yourself against it, to remember that you are included now in a vast fraternity, sorority of human beings who have had to give up traditions and have had to miss holidays or birthdays or celebration or rites of passage because of life interfering, because of the way their work schedules are, or because of the weather. You've probably already gotten through an unusual season like this, and you're not even thinking about it or realizing it right now. So I want you to think back and realize, oh yeah, there was that year I was in the service and I was overseas and I couldn't see my family. Or there was that year I was in training, or I was in nursing school and I had an overnight on New Year's Eve. And all of these occasions upon which you may have found something quite beautiful in change and difference, and even in absence. Since I got that first taste of a quiet, solitary Christmas in 1994, I've actually chosen many years not to travel to be with family and not to accept invitations to go out for Chinese food and a movie, but just to stay home and be cozy with my animals, with maybe a good book and some hot chocolate and some music. I've discovered that both of those ways of celebrating are wonderful in their own way. I hope that you, whatever you choose to do, that you embrace it fully, that you acknowledge what you may be giving up or may be losing and make space for that grieving, but that you also make space for the peace and the joy that may come with doing something different. Sometimes new things want to be born, and they can only be born when we make some room for them. So I'll be thinking of you on Christmas. I will be safe at home here, warm, and very, very grateful for all of you. Grateful that we together can see some light at the end of the tunnel of this pandemic as the vaccine rolls out and our healthcare workers start to receive it, and it rolls on from there. We have to stay patient. We have to stay strong. And we have to remember that what we really need for Christmas and every day to get through this and into this new year is love and hope and faithfulness and inner peace. Blessed be.
I will not leave you. I will not leave you. Comfort others. I will come to you yet again. Alleluia. O come, Emmanuel, and with your captive children dwell. Give comfort to all exiles here, and to the aching heart be cheer. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as love to dwell. Oh, come, you splendor very bright, as joy that never yields to night. Oh, come and turn all hearts to peace, that greed and war at last shall cease. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as truth to dwell. Oh, come, you day spring, come and cheer our spirits by your presence here, and on in every broken soul, as vision that can see the whole. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as light to dwell.